Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about a recent mission, space mission that is news, that is called as BPI Colombo mission. This mission has sent for the first time a very clear image of the Mercury's south pole. So basically this mission is going to study the surface of the Mercury. So let us try to understand the significance of the mission. So first of all, if you look at the recent news, recently the spacecraft that is operated by European Space Agency and Japan Space Agency, that is called as JAXA, it has made its closest approach yet to the Mercury. Now it has sent back, as you can see, very sharp black and white images of the planet's barren speckled surface, which was visible during the sunrise. The spacecraft that is called as BPI Colombo, it gave scientists their first clear view of Mercury's south pole, and it also has captured several of the planet's craters, because if you look at the surface of Mercury, it looks very similar to the surface of Moon, as Moon is also made up of highlands and crater, and similarly, as we can say, everywhere on the surface of Mercury there are a large number of craters, numerous craters. So it has also captured image of the several of the planet's crater, including those with unusual rings of peaks within the basin's rim. So if we try to understand the BPI Colombo mission, it is a joint mission operated by two space agencies. One is the ESA, that is European Space Agency, and other is the JAXA, that is the Japanese Space Agency. The mission was launched in the year 2018, and the main objective of this particular space mission is that BPI Colombo will go into the orbit around Mercury somewhere in year 2026, that is 2 years from now, about a year after its original arrival time. Now the delay happened due to efforts that resulted into the problems, and basically we can say in thrusters of the space aircraft, and due to this reason the mission was delayed by several years. However, the BPI Colombo snapped photos of two peak ring basins that is called as Vivaldi, and recently that is the second peak called as Stoddard. If you look at the image here, we can clearly see that this is something that is a crater here, and within the crater, as you can see, there is rings, and within the ring you have the peaks. So this is what this is the image that actually has been captured by this particular mission. Now, if you talk about the planet itself and what is the significance of studying Mercury, so Mercury is the least studied rocky planet that we have in our solar system. This planet is also closest to the Sun. It has two orbiters. If you talk about the mission itself, one of the orbiter will be focused on Mercury's landscape, studying the geology of the Mercury, studying the surface of the Mercury, while the other will collect data about its surrounding space environment. To remind you, Mercury does not have any atmosphere of its own. However, still it is affected by the Sun and it has its own magnetic field. So the study of that will be done by the second orbiter that is part of this particular mission. To learn about the planet's origin, we talk about what is the main aim or objective of the mission. It is to learn about the planet's origin, how did Mercury came into existence, and since origin, how the surface or atmosphere or any kind of characteristic of Mercury has evolved. And it will be done by studying the composition of Mercury, what kind of minerals it has, what kind of rock structure it has, by studying the geology, and also studying the magnetic field, both the changes as well as overall evolution. Now Mercury is difficult to get to because flying toward the Sun causes spacecraft to pick up speed, because obviously if you try to understand about solar system, Sun is at the center of solar system, and also Sun makes up for 99.98% of the total mass of solar system. That means it remaining all the bodies that you see, they make up almost 0.2%, only 0.2% of the total mass of solar system. So any object that is flying toward Mercury, and since Mercury is the closest to the Sun, is significantly impacted by the massive gravitational pull of Sun. And due to the strong gravitational pull of Sun, the spacecraft start to pick up the speed and it may crash into the nearby planets, or it can be even pulled toward the Sun as well. And that is why it becomes very, very difficult to go toward Mercury. Now, if we try to look at the Mercury itself, some of the important features or some of the important characteristics of Mercury, this is a planet that, as we have discussed, closest to the Sun, and during its closest distance, Mercury is 46 million kilometers from the Sun, while at its farthest distance, it lies at 70 million kilometers from the Sun. It is the smallest planet of the solar system and almost 1.4 times bigger than the Moon, that is the only natural satellite of the Earth. If we talk about the shortest year, The Mercury, if you talk about this year of the Mercury, it has the shortest year in the solar system, and in 88 Earth days, you have completion of 1 year of Mercury. Now, year is obviously is due to the revolution of the planet around the sun. So, in other way, we can also say that Mercury completes 1 revolution around the sun in 88 Earth days. The fastest planet also, if you talk about in terms of speed of revolution, it revolves at around 47 kilometers per second. It has the longest day. 1 day of Mercury is equivalent to 59 Earth days, and it has extreme temperature, obviously, because there is no atmosphere. So the climatic regulation does not happen. It is something similar to what we see on the moon also. So in the night time, or when it is away from the sun, the temperature can drop as low as minus 180 degrees Celsius, while when the face of Mercury it is oriented toward the sun, it can rise as high as 430 degrees Celsius. So a very extreme type of climate is what we observe here, and this is something that it shares similarity with the moon also. Also, if you talk about Mercury, it does not have any kind of ring, and Mercury does not have any moon. So these are some of the basic facts we should know about the smallest planet of our solar system, that is Mercury. If we talk about the baby Colombo mission itself, as we can see, it will have two orbiter. One orbiter that is called as Mercury Planetary Orbiter. It is the Mercury Planetary Orbiter which will orbit around the Mercury, near to the Mercury, and this will focus on studying the physical characteristic, the landscape of the planet. On the other hand, the second orbiter, that is MMO, that is called as Mercury Magnetospheric Orbiter, it will orbit around the Mercury but slightly in a larger orbit at a much farther distance, and this will study the magnetosphere and the other nearby space conditions in which Mercury rotates and revolves. And then we have the Mercury Transfer Module. It is expected that it will arrive near Mercury somewhere near the date of December 25, 2025. The mission was launched on October 20, 2018. So this is some brief discussions about the mission. Now, the recent image that the mission has sent us can unveil a lot of mystery that Mercury surrounds itself with. So, Mercury, many times scientists refer Mercury also as a planet that is full of secrets, and also it is a paradoxical place. Now, why it is a full of secret and paradoxical place? Let us try to understand by looking at its feature. So, first of all, if you look at the size of Mercury, the size of the core of Mercury is very, very large as compared to the upper part, or we can say equivalent to the Earth's crust that surrounds it. In the case of Earth, we talk about the core is relatively smaller, surrounded by a larger mantle, and then you have the upper crust. But that is something that is reverse in the case of Mercury. Second is, as we have just discussed, Mercury witnesses a very high or extreme temperature fluctuations, where on the higher level temperature can go as high as plus 400 degrees Celsius. Even in those conditions, water ice exists on the surface of Mercury, despite, as we have discussed, scorching exposure it receives to the sun without an atmosphere to protect it. Now, this is also something that is a kind of mystery. Third is, the Mercury has unexpected magnetic field, and also Mercury planet is rich in volatile compounds. When we talk about volatile compounds, it consists of elements such as chlorine, sulfur, and potassium. Now, these compounds generally should not exist, or these elements basically should not generally exist on the planet of Mercury, because they should readily evaporate on planets with high temperature. Despite that, there is a rich source or rich reserve of such volatile compounds. So basically what it indicates to us, that Mercury once, when it has formed, when it has developed, when it has originated, it must have formed farther out in the solar system, and later on it has been pulled toward the center, or toward what you can say near to the sun. So that is why, and that is how we can explain these anomalies that we see in Mercury's behavior. Now, if we talk about the mission itself, Baby Columbus will do 2 flybys, that is scheduled in next 2 years, and after that they spend nearly 2 years cruising around the sun before settling into orbit around the Mercury by the end of 2026. So first proposed in 1993, the mission was set to be launched in 2014, but the engineering delay puts the date 4 years later in 2018. With efforts to compensate for the spacecraft thruster difficulties, scientists face an additional 11-month delay before the orbit of Mercury begins. So, though the delays have been frustrating, the scientists and the people who are behind the mission, the main scientists who are behind the mission, they believe the main thing is that we get there when we get there, and also they are trying to play it safe because it is a very important mission and can unveil lot of information, hidden data about the nearest planet to the sun, that is the Mercury. That is all about this particular video. I hope you understood overall the significance of Bepi-Colombo mission. Thank you very much. Its neighbor country Uganda. This project was initially helped or supported by China, but since 2020, China has stopped funding this project. So this is something that also Kenya is looking forward to. Now this comes despite its massive debt to China, which has triggered countrywide protests in Kenya, because obviously there is a risk of a debt trap, something that we have seen in the past. For example, the debt trap in which Sri Lanka was caught with China after taking a lot of investment and a lot of external debt. Another concern from countries like South Africa is the balance of trade currently is in China's favor. Now, balance of trade basically means the import minus export. So, in this case, China is exporting to South Africa to a much more larger value as compared to what South Africa is exporting to China. So, this is something that is also a matter of concern where many countries want to have a trade surplus. However, if you try to understand the current summit that has taken place, basically it is not only a summit to extend economic and what we can call as financial cooperation. It is also a summit that is trying to give a political message. And what kind of political message? We can understand that in the inaugural events of the FOSAC summit, China has extended a red carpet welcome for the delegates, and this has been something which has been noticed. Now, through this kind of welcome and also through the introductory statements that has been given by the Chinese leaders, China is trying to emerge or basically reiterates its position that it is a developing country. And this is something that they're trying to show the similarity they have with the African nations. Not only that, China is also trying to bond with African countries as victims of Western imperialism. And this is a message which has been welcomed by the visitors, that means African countries delegates as well. So, economic, financial and political cooperation is something that China is trying to achieve through this summit in the future. So, that is all about this particular video. I hope you understood the significance of the FOSAC summit and overall details around it.